international outlet. I'm your news reporter Miriam Anwar with breaking news for this evening. On today's topic, we'll be discussing oral cancer, as I'm joined here by 6 other individuals who have so much to share with us. So to debrief really quickly, oral cancer is uncontrolled growth of the abnormal cells starting from the mouth cavity leading to the formation of the tumor. And on average, 54,000 Americans are diagnosed with oral cancer every year, resulting in 9,750 deaths. According to the World Cancer Research Fund, oral carcinoma is the world's most common cancer with 90% of all oral malignancies. But to prevent mortality, early detection is crucial here. But the issue with oral cancer is that it often goes undiagnosed. Therefore, the team has identified a solution with creating a product for this problem. Nehal, please take it away and tell us more about it.
Sure thing, Mariam. So far, technology related to oral cancer diagnoses has mainly included devices that detect only the presence of potentially malignant bumps or lesions in the oral cavity. Some of these devices include Vislight Plus by Denmat, Microlux DL by Addent, and Velscope VX by LED Dental. Even though these devices can be helpful in the clinical space for early diagnoses, some of them can still be unreliable. Articles in the literature like that of Naji et al. Have reported high false positive and false negative cases associated with the Vislight Plus, and a relatively high discrepancy in distinguishing between malignant and benign lesions with the Microlux DL. So even though these devices are great as a preliminary measure, practitioners, dentists, and oral hygienists still have to resort to gathering biopsies as a more confirmed molecular diagnostic test. Because biopsies are an invasive procedure, researchers and other biotech developers are looking towards other molecular diagnostic procedures that can avoid this potential discomfort through saliva samples instead of oral mucosa. Recently, one such kit has been invented called Salimark OSCC by PeriRx. These kits are meant to be used by clinicians and involve collection of patient saliva combined with a preservative in a test tube and are sent to a lab to detect for cancer-identifying biomarkers. Our product also is a molecular diagnostic test, involves saliva collection through swabs, but is meant for at-home use instead so that those who may be more susceptible to oral cancer can have access to easier, faster, and more frequent testing. Now moving on to Savan, who will be talking about SWOT analysis.
Thanks, Miriam and Naha, for that. Now, before talking about patentability, let's take it over here and get a quick look at the SWOT analysis the research team has been able to put together for this product. Starting with strengths and weaknesses, it is promising in the ease of access to the results, as once the process is completed, the results get emailed to you straight from a lab, so you can always view it so long as you have access to your email. We then have saliva acting as a double-edged sword in this scenario, providing both strengths and weaknesses here. Its strength being that it contains many biomarkers that can help detect oral cancer. Specifics of that later on with Isabella. Its weakness being that saliva research has only recently increased and gained attention, so there are many ways of evaluating saliva, but no one specific standard means for which to do so. Now, continuing with the same theme, we look at the opportunity here. This company is claiming that they can even further stretch out this product to have the ability to be used for other oral diseases so long as they have the biomarkers for them. This can include, but is not at all limited to, diabetes, dental caries, and periodontal disease, also known as gingivitis. And lastly, wrapping it all the way back around is the threat of this product, that is, its current inability to be patented, which is going to be talked about next by Sebastian, and then later elaborated more so by Taha. Here's Sebastian for that.
The researchers were designing their product. They dealt with many challenges, but the biggest challenge of all was the patentability of the product. A patent gives the inventor the right to prohibit others from creating or selling identical or similar products. For a product to be patentable, it must first pass specific tests. The first test is the utility test, which requires that the product displays a specific, substantial, and credible use. The second test is a novelty test, which consists of a person skilled in the art or subject matter being presented with one piece of previous art, which usually consists of a previous product or invention, and seeing if they can come up with a new invention by themselves. The third test is very similar to the novelty test, but it's called the non-obviousness test, which works very much the same way as the novelty test, but multiple pieces of prior art are presented instead of just the one. The final test is the enablement test. This test requires that the skilled person familiar with the subject matter would be able to recreate the invention given sufficient time and instruction. The invention must pass all of the above mentioned tests in order to be patentable. Some of these tests created a major obstacle for the researchers in pursuit of a patent.
The at-home testing kit must first pass utility to prove its efficacy. Studies conducted found results relating to salivary biomarkers. Inventors Nagler and Melvish found a combination of certain biomarkers in saliva to be accurate predictors of oral cancer. These were based on two studies. The first study by Spitzer et al. looked at saliva of 19 tongue cancer patients for 8 cancerous biomarkers and found that 5 were increased in cancer patients. These were carbanols, LDH, MMP9, Ki67, and CYCD1. The remaining 3 were decreased in cancer patients: OGG1, phospho-SRC, and MASPIN. Combination of all of these came from their correlation, the highest being between MASPIN and CYCD1. Nagler et al. Looked at the expression of TSPO, which is an anti-cancer biomarker in the saliva of tongue cancer patients, cigarette smokers, and healthy non-smokers, and found that this biomarker binding was decreased in both cancer patients and cigarette smokers. This suggests that cigarette smoke inhibits the TSPO anti-cancer biomarker from binding and preventing cancer. With proving utility, these results demonstrate that a product gathering saliva from at-risk patients like smokers and tobacco users is a valid and reliable measure to screen whether they have oral cancer as soon as possible and prevent late-stage diagnoses. I will now send it over to Ramiz to talk about the novelty test.
For the novelty test, it starts with prior art. The prior art is all the research that is relevant to the new patent that has been done so far, and a single piece of prior art is presented to the PCETA, which is a person skilled in the art. They are the individuals who have a lot of expertise in this area that is relevant to the patent. It is the PCETA's job to observe the prior art and predict the new patent. If they succeed in accurately predicting the invention, the novelty test fails and the invention is deemed anticipated. If they cannot predict, then the patent succeeds. How does it relate to our patent? So considering the patents of Nagler and Malvish as prior art, the novelty test fails for the oral cancer kit. The prior art mentions that it is crucial to gather saliva as a biomarker through a swab so it can be tested for oral cancer, and that is precisely the function of our patent. Next is the test for non-obviousness. If the patent passes the novelty test, it will be tested for non-obviousness. This is extremely similar to the novelty test, except the PCETA is presented with more than one prior art forming a mosaic. How does this relate to our patent? Considering the COVID-19 antigen testing kit prior art mosaic, the oral cancer kit fails this test because they don't have a lot of difference between the two kits, and the only difference is that the oral kits do not provide the results right away. So therefore, the invention will be anticipated.
Thank you, Ramiz. As previously stated, the primary issues with oral cancer is that it typically goes undiagnosed until later stages where the cancer is significantly advanced and survival rate is significantly decreased. Early stage symptoms comprise of red or white plaques within the mouth, while later stages manifest as painful ulcers or mucosal growth. The reason why oral cancer goes undiagnosed is because within the early stages, plaques don't normally produce any pain or discomfort to the patient. As a result, there isn't a dire need, concern, or necessity to see a specialist for an examination. To address this issue and increase the likelihood of early diagnosis, we have created an at-home oral cancer testing kit as a preliminary screening tool. This kit comprises of an oral swab with a camera attachment as well as a saliva collection tube. When the camera is inserted into the mouth, the associated flashlight is turned on and the camera takes a recording of the patient's oral cavity. Essentially, this is scanning for any signs of early stages, which are the red and white plaques. Once completed, the recording footage can be uploaded to the patient's laptop in a secured manner where it is sent to a specialist for further examination. Relative to other diagnostic methods, this is a relatively non-invasive method, as typically we see biopsies to diagnose oral cancer. With respect to saliva collection, patients collect the saliva specimen within the tube. The tube is then packaged and sent to the lab for biomarker analysis. The lab tests for elevated interleukin 8, interleukin 6, and albumin levels, as multiple studies have shown these proteins to have significantly high levels in early stages of oral cancer. Specifically, albumin has shown to have high levels when the cancer is pre-malignant, which is essentially what we're trying to catch. This property allows the screening to be performed at home and by a non-professional who is the patient. Moreover, providing individuals with the ability to perform a test at home removes accessibility barriers, since screening is not restricted by appointment availability and facility location. Ultimately, by offering individuals who are of higher risk of developing oral cancer a self-screening tool with minimal discomfort that is readily accessible, we hope to correct the dire need for early detection of oral cancer. Thank you for listening.